County Historical Society for 1993. And today our program is going to be the story of some people in Chatham, Alabama. This tape will deal with the city of Chatham and the residents who live here. Thank you.
Of course, all of you know who I am.
Now tell us.
Louis Ferguson.
How old are you?
Uh-oh.
I'm pushing 80 years old. I'm 79. I was born February the 12th, 1915. So back I can't remember. I remember when Zachy was born.
He does. Oh, she was so young. You did all of that, Louis, did it?
The area you were talking about was really both sides of the railroad up here. Mr. Grady Hurst had a store, and my dad's store, you just could walk back a little more than the width of this table here, between, I don't know how they built it, between the buildings. But anyway, the Masonic Hall was up above Dad's store. And right in that same area was the Jack, I don't know who had it before, Jack Shell anyway, had a garage, and my uncle told Mills worked in there with him. And then later, he and Lucy got married, and no, that was not Lucy. Who was he married? Anyway, she's in the nursing home.
Louis.
I'll tell you, man, I told you, my mind is over the come.
Miss Lucy's day.
Ethel Mills, you,
No,
No, I
that was
can't.
my uncle's wife.
oh, Virgin.
Virgin Shell. They finally got married. Just out of that same area, Zach Dees had a Model T, didn't even have a top on it. And he ran the taxi, I guess you'd call it. He hauled folks all over Chatham and all over Washington County. And I never did know him to do a whole lot more than that. I didn't mean that. But anyway, that's, you played ball.
Played.
Yeah, he played a little pro ball. I've forgotten where. But I grew up in that area right there. The Hurst home was across the street. Incidentally, you can take a picture of it. It's down in the back of my house.
It's down near the railroad tracks.
It was across the railroad track from this business area. Not only the Hurst home, but there was two-story buildings like that. And just, I don't really know who owned them, but just above them across the track, we had a turpentine still. And business coming and going through there.
Had a turpentine still in the city of Chatham,
Yeah.
Yeah, general store.
Well, there was,
where the
how many
general dollar
turpentine
store is.
stills? At least three. The Dr. Chasen had one, and Dickers had one, and my daddy had one.
Just during the fall.
Jesse had one.
Mr. John Dickey had one.
That was
I know
full of
there were three, the Dickey and the Chasen. And then later on, Mr. Hurst had one. really wasn't much to town except, of course, my dad came to Chatham. I come in here, I guess, and bought the old home that Aunt Molly Loper, she was your great aunt, wasn't she? Anyway, she built the home that my mother, in my mother's old house, and Edith's granddaddy built the house that I now live in.
Harlow.
Right, Harlow. He
He
was
was
the
sheriff.
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 Yeah, he got killed or something over in
He died, heart attack.
a heart attack over in, what was he hunting?
Bears.
Oh, yeah, they were bear hunting over in McIntosh area.
Who was your daddy?
Who was my daddy?
Your daddy and mother? Who were
My
they?
dad was Jack, well, GL, everybody called him Jack. I don't know where they got that, but that was his name. To everybody that knew him. My mother was a Mills. She was a man, Mark Mills, his daughter, in Copeland. They bought the house from Aunt Molly Powell, built that house beside her granddaddy's house. Actually, the old Carly Baxter, we called it Carly Baxter House, right up from us, was a log house. It wasn't very big, and I don't really know who owned it, except everybody in this, they'd move in and move out pretty regularly. That was all. Now around the corner, the Smith house that's still there wasn't anything but how big it was, it said, about three, we had one bedroom, I believe, and then another bedroom was added, and then they redid it after Professor Smith got to be superintendent of education. They redid the house and made it like it is now. There wasn't anything on our side of the road, the railroad, until you got up to, after my daddy bought the house, my mother's old house, Aunt Molly Loper Powell, after first Mr. Loper died, she married Jimsy Powell, and they went up there and built a pretty fine house. The Catholic Church is a part of that house now. They didn't tear it all down. I don't know whether you can tell it now or not, but seeing it changed over, part of it was still there. And then there was Judge Pelham owned a big two-story building, which was later torn down, and tell you how big it was, they built, I believe, 5 rental houses down in front of my mother's house from there to the railroad. Just little buildings. And then that was after Judge Pelham and Pearl, what's her name, Blunt, wasn't she Blunt? Were married. They built the new home later on. They lived there a little while. Judge Pelham's father lived there in the old two-story building. And later, before he and Pearl got married, they built a brick building where the printing office was in the back part. And he had his law office in front.
That's where Harold Odom's office is
That's where
now.
Harold's office is now, yeah. And there was a big wooden building where Judge Pelham had his office originally, his law office, wooden building between where Sammy Joe's building is and the two-story, the old drugstore building. It was there years and was later torn down. I've forgotten who bought it. But anyway, Jency Powell built the drugstore building, which was a two-story building, and it still is a two-story building. And I know Mr. Jim Grenade later on had his law office upstairs. In fact, part of his books, last time I looked, old book took that. And later, after my dad died, a couple of my uncles ran the store, and they took time still until later both of them finally gave up on it, I guess. But anyway, they told the building that incidentally, the upstairs where the Masonic Hall originally was torn off, made a one-story building out of it. That was after Miss Jerry built the two-story building, which was the Masonic Hall.
What about the Hill, Whitsey Hotel up there, that building, who's the original owners of that, you remember? Like some of the Hills and
Yeah,
all that?
John Hill's mother ran the hotel. Now, I'm not sure that Mr. Jim Grenade didn't build the building. There wasn't anything there except first tennis game I saw in my life was right beside there. They had two tennis courts, and they were there until they built, I know Sis remembers tennis courts up there. Well, I'm sure you did, because they stayed there until they moved the building and built the government buildings, or whoever who owned them. Cotton owned some of them, but I don't know who owns the whole thing. But
Would that been the first hotel, what they call the Hill?
as far as that,
No,
No.
the Hill Hotel
Hill
was
Hotel.
all over.
no, the old Hill Hotel was they were behind the courthouse, and the Hill Hotel was down toward, it burned, see. It was a big two-story building. And all the teachers, the lawyers, and everything else, Bill Lindsay lived up there, and I think he lived there a little while after he and his wife got married. And finally, I believe her father died, and they moved down there.
Well, what about the Hoffman Hotel now, was that,
the
that's the same one, the
That
Hill,
was
then to
later
the
on.
Hoffman?
That was originally the Hill Hotel,
Okay.
but later on, the Hoffmans
All right.
Hoffman ran it till they gave up on it or whatever. Well, I remember all the teachers that didn't live in something. Do what?
About that tavern over there on the other corner.
The
Well,
Lake
Human Resource
Hotel.
Building, the lake, no.
Yeah.
Over there where the, Human Resource Building,
Yeah.
the one that's down there. House is down at Tibby now, the hotel, that used to be there. It's over down at Tibby now.
Well, that was the old hotel where the tennis courts was, and the Hill,
Grenades. That was the first home of Mr. Jim and Miss Ethel Grenade. And when they built their brick home on top of the hill is when it became a hotel.
Okay.
And it's been
Oh.
several owners,
they.
a Chatham Tavern.
Chatham.
For a long time, that's what I remember
That's
there.
Chatham
Named
Town,
Lake
that's what it's
Hotel.
called.
Leggy.
I guess I'm talking about the one where Miss Pruitt lived back there.
That was the Pruitt
By
Hotel.
Ethel, by Ethel back there, what was that? That old building's falling
Miss
in.
Carey must have now, yeah. That was Watley's at one time. I know the Watleys lived there.
The Leggett Hotel, wasn't it?
The Chatham Tavern was where Miss Leggy lived. Because that was my
But
time.
now, the Grenades
Yeah, the
lived in a
Watleys and
wooden
then the
building.
Whitsies.
You now know, at that time, when Joe and James were growing up, you could see, and you could holler across from my house to their house. And all the barbecues, and even had baseball games out there where that thicket is, pine thicket, just thick as it could be now. Belonged to Mr. Jim DeMade, I guess, because he finally fenced it up. There was a big barn over back of that area, big barn. I remember having shear sheep over there many a time.
Okay, what about the Armstrong, underdump home that's burned, that's used to be around the back of the hill from Living Over Home?
Across the road from
That
Sandra
was
Laura's
an old
house.
home.
They go beautiful white two-story building around there from behind Living Over.
That was Brooks.
Across from
Mr.
Santa
Jim's
Cruz.
brother.
That's
Mr.
where
Jim's
Mr. Leroy
brother died, built that house.
Underdump.
The
Mr.
Underdumps
Leroy
lived in it. Mr. Leroy.
became sheriff, and he built, that was a fine home. I remember having marble hearths and marble around the fireplaces. It was a three-story, it was 3 stories high, it was a big building.
Beautiful home.
And it had tennis courts in the back, and I used to walk across there, Leon and I had a bicycle shop. We called ourselves doing a big business back there, fixing bicycles, anyway.
Another building would be the old theater. When was that?
The old theater, it wasn't too
Not
old. I was a good size, I was grown when it.
It came along just about time World War I, because before then we had movies in the old,
That's right, York.
well, we had movies in the Legion Hall down here. I mean, World War II, excuse me.
Leroy Underdog built that
Yeah.
big two-story building.
That's the
It
oldest,
burned too, didn't it?
oldest standing
I
house.
think it did.
Then
It
it
burned
changed.
while I wasn't around. I was gone.
All right, the Dr. Chasen home, which is still,
The old Dr. Chasen home, which is still there, was one of the old homes. His office is still there. Doctor's office is still there. And it's a shame that some way, somehow, somebody doesn't, they don't even live in it now. I understand they live in a trailer over back of it. And it's a shame that somebody doesn't,
All of them gone.
huh?
All of them gone.
Is that right?
All the water on.
Yeah.
Well,
Sandra lives over
I
in
looked the other day and the
Clark
curtains
County.
all hanging out the windows. It's terrible.
She's in nursing
The
home over in
Chasen,
Sacramento.
Johnny Chasen and his family were over here last year and went over to look at it. And they were just sick when they saw what was that. But Waterall had bought it, and we had a cotton gin and a sawmill right back of it,
Down the
Yeah,
top.
where the blacktop road goes down the hill.
And stop.
Yeah,
Where's the liquor store in Chatham?
yeah.
At the end of that.
That little road don't block it.
We had a big cotton gin. I think all the cotton in this part of the country, they'd line up way back the hill, wait on each other to gin their cotton. And we built the building up higher on the hill, with a big pipe and barrier where you could put a boxcar up in there and blow cotton seed over into the boxcar. You could load a truck or a boxcar. Well, I've been finished.
You mentioned the paved road. When were the roads in Chatham paved?
That hadn't been all that long to me.
You know what year, any of you?
The first pavement was from the courthouse to the bridge is just the other side of McKinley's, and that was in 1938, I think, was the first 5 miles of pavement.
1937,
Was it 37?
because that's the first time I'd come to Chatham.
and
You got the vibe.
And then all the
My daddy
blacktop
here
from
worked on that
the
road. He
Bassett Creek Bridge to Chatham, that's all we had from Montgomery now. Except coming through Selma and all, back in 37, the first trip I ever made. Thought I'd never get here.
I was,
Experiment with cotton. They put
I was timekeeper on that
300
job,
cotton
that
miles.
Passage Creek.
Put cotton under the highway for the foundation?
was in
I worked on that highway there.
Oh,
that.
Huh?
I worked on it about 25, 30 years.
Huh?
I worked on it after we built.
Well, we built from Passage Creek Bridge to, where out there, see, it stopped out the other side of town.
Oh,
Black Hawk,
McKinney's, just beyond McKinney's.
yeah, Black McKinney's house, that's
It
right.
was 5 miles.
And then later on,
This road was made here, they wouldn't come up and make a short turn, and they wanted to take in Chatham, so the Jordans let them
stay on the river.
Make a curve.
across this. That's why you'd cut across all of the streets and everything else
Went
in
from
this
the
town
courthouse.
to go as close to the courthouse as possible.
Run the table, let them have a conversation. Yeah.
I was timekeeper on that, on the final part of that too. Finally,
what about a water system in Chatham? Do you remember when it came?
Yes.
Sid,
1952.
yeah, Sid was involved with that. Richard,
1952.
But before that, we had Mr. Richardson that gave water to some of the business places.
well, we had water
Ice.
to our house. It came down, it went to the courthouse, I believe, and those businesses up on the hill where the courthouse is, came down the hill to my house, and I believe, I'm not positive, I believe it went all around to Professor Smith's house. That was the end of it down
No,
That Mr. John Richardson.
there. John Rich,
we were going to put it, we put it, when we had a coal mill up there, we bought a locomotive crane, and Mr. Smith would let us go that way if we would tie him in.
When did you
So
build
we
the
went from the corner, we put a pipe in from the corner over there by his house and down and
I remember.
put the pipe through a culvert under the railroad, and 10 months after we were using it, 10 months before we got permission, we done it.
When I, later on, well, no, before we all built, I built some houses down on the hill, at back of his house, and we had to dig the ditches and extend the line and pay for the whole shebang down to my house down. The city didn't do anything. I think they later on put meters in. They didn't put the water in, I bought it and paid for it. Had it done.
How about electricity?
Huh?
Electricity, REA, when did they come?
Oh, looks like you had lights before REA, didn't you?
What year?
49.
1949.
Now that, the John Richardson water system originally started with a big high tank. And he pumped the water up, he built the ice house first, you know. And he pumped the water out of his well, I guess, up into those tanks. And then the tank was high enough that they piped it to the business area and courthouse.
A lot of the pumps still on that old well down
And Rusty,
that right?
that was Rusty's
I
water.
have looked at it. I know, I can go put my finger on it, I guarantee you.
Tell us,
One made ice,
In
one
there.
iron, the one that made, that was iron went in the tank.
there.
Mr. Fergus, tell us about do you have brothers and sisters?
I had one brother, Norris, that married Sadie Mac, and Sadie Mac Wade, yeah. And he died pretty young. He died of a heart attack. And that runs in our family. My dad died fairly young.
When did he die, do you recall?
Yeah,
It wasn't very old, was it about 42 or something?
something like that.
Yeah.
He was fairly young. It was while I was in grade school,
In the thirties.
yeah, in the 30s.
You went to school here at Chatham?
Here, I went to school, and the first school, I'm glad you asked, the first school building was a wooden building, just about as wide as this building, a little, about as long as to the outer wall on it. And it had a great big old round heater in it. And we had, the people in Chatham had to furnish the wood. And it was about that high off the ground. And the goats slept under it most of the time, and the fleas would eat you up.
Where was it located?
You know, where the end of, what the
Fred Jordan.
Fred Jordan School, about, maybe as far as this wall to the, wasn't much further than the length of the building. There was a big oak tree, big old red oak, about that big round, and it was on beyond the oak was between the school and that, well, it wasn't the school there, where the school is now, and where that original building was. The high school had already been built. Now, our high school was the only high school in Choctaw County, I know, because there was the human school, some of those.
That one that had borders?
Yeah,
You mean
it had
dormitory
it had a dormitory right back of it.
On one in Washington
Where the
County.
ag,
Washington County,
where the home ec building is there now.
Yeah.
It was two-story building, and when you went in the front, you went by, all the professors lived there, and you had to go by their living area and go, the girls went up one end, one steps from one end, and the boys went up steps on the other. I will not tell this, but I seen boys walk, there was a brick stuck out just about that wide, a row of them, all the way around. After you got upstairs, they'd climb out the windows and walk, hold those brick and walk that around to those.
See how long it's been going on?
I lived up there.
What year did you finish school?
What?
1933.
32 or something.
32.
33? Oh, 32? I went,
They
he
came out one summer.
graduated with me.
I believe I finished
1933.
32.
What year
It was
was
33,
Professor Lucky
it
in
was.
old school then?
Huh?
Professor Lucky, what year was that? He was over
He
there.
came up that summer when lived in
Yes,
Mother
during-
Martin and went to college one year at
marching
University of
down
Alabama, I
there,
think.
old man.
He might have gone to Spring Hill.
Uh,
You lived with us one summer, Mother, and them
That
was
was-
tough to
that's
listen.
when I
Then you
went-
came back and went to Spring Hill,
yeah,
went to University of Alabama one summer.
yeah.
You played football at Spring Hill? And
Yeah, I think.
And at WCN.
We didn't have, it worse than it was at Chatham. They didn't have anything much.
Oh, we had a pretty good
I
team.
don't know whether we won any games or not. I know we went to Pensacola and played the Navy, and there wasn't a man on the team that wasn't twice as big as I was. They like to kill us.
what'd you play?
I played quarterback most of the time. I played.
What'd you do after college?
Huh?
What'd you do after college?
Got married.
I came back and the old store was in need of somebody to run it. I came back and went to work running that store, and I ran it until Uncle Grover, I believe, yeah. Well, I got married
did you marry?
Mildred Harvard, and I worked there in commissary at England for, I don't know how many years, 2 or 3 years. And finally came back to Chatham and went to work for the State Highway Department. Mildred and I both worked in there, keeping books, and I was out on the road when they were doing the blacktopping from up where did it start? Up the road there. What's that boy's name married?
Gas and Moss. Like my old tin
Sid was in it, he can tell you what's on.
Okay, and you attend the Baptist church now? And
I was born into the Baptist church. Well, at that time, there wasn't much of the church there. It wasn't very big. And the Methodist, Presbyterian, and Baptist, all the Longs were Presbyterian. And a whole bunch of the Methodists, Judge Pelham and the Turners, and all of them were Methodists. And they later built present Methodist Church, where it is now.
how many children do you have, and give us the names of those, please?
I have one, Mary Lou,
And she lives where?
and she lives in Raleigh, North Carolina. Greg, that's her son. So
Mary Lou who?
Mary Lou Massey. I'm sorry, I was thinking one thing, listening with the other.
Birmingham?
This is her son at the end over
You
here.
from Birmingham?
Him?
No, that's
Are there any other questions anyone has?
Originally, yeah, he's
He's from
from
Birmingham.
Okay, you got anything?
You never did tell about your sister. You told about Narn. You didn't say you had a sister. You said you didn't tell what she was.
my sister, incidentally married Jesse Jordan Jr.
Carolyn.
Charles, her name was Carolyn. She finished school and business school and worked in Mobile for a long time. But she and Jesse, I think, Jesse Jr., I'm talking about, went together all their lives. Anyway, finally, he had finished Auburn and had been called into the Army during World War II and was in, way up north somewhere. So I think he sent her the money. She and mother, I believe, caught a train, rode a train, went to what we would call a train, and went up there and they were married. And my mother caught a train back in Chatham, where she lived right there before she died. And that's about, I lived in, did I tell you, I lived in Edith's granddaddy built a house. Yeah, he got killed in the marathon. Now, I can tell you, along the railroad, everything was along the railroad then. And Tommy D's, Mr. John Undergone, all that was down back of where the bank is now. The bank was over where the, what do you call that building now? Farm Bureau building. The bank was over there. It was a two-story building then.
The two-story building was right where the present building.
Oh, yeah, right.
And they moved it over there.
Yeah.
On the bill.
And they tore down the old two-story building and built the
Built the
building.
present building. But anyway, Mr. Tommy Dees had a store down there. Mr. John Undergone a little further up. Mr. Grady Hurst and the daddy was all on that back street back in there. In fact, there was at one time a street where you could drive, at least, from all the way down to where we had the cotton gin and all that, down right beside the railroad, but there was, there, I guess still is, an old dug well. I never did know a dug well was that. One time a bunch of geese flew over. And one of them tried to light in that well or something. Anyway, he got in there. We got him out somewhere.
Hey,
Who's that?
let's get your grandson up there with you, and just so we can get him on tape, please. And give us your name and,
I'm Greg Massey, the son of Mary Lou Massey and John Massey. Mary Lou Ferguson was her name before she married Mr. Massey.
okay,
So I'm Mr. Ferguson's grandson.
all right.
Turn the light on. I'm Von Seal Williams Reed, and I was born May 15th, 1915, near Vinegar Bend, Alabama. And I'm going to tell you something about Vinegar Bend in a little while. My parents were J. Gary Williams and Hattie Causey Williams. And my maternal grandparents were Sarah Causey and Josiah Causey, who was a pioneer Baptist preacher in Washington County. He had pastors in Springbank and at Shade Grove, and he is buried out there. And Lucius's grandmother and my grandmother were sisters. They were dear ones before they married. And so I wish you could see some of his writing. It looks like calligraphy. We saw some of it exactly from in one of the books from Springbank Church. Lucy had it. And his handwriting looks just like calligraphy. I never have seen, mine certainly don't look like that. And so he would leave home on Friday afternoon and stay the whole weekend and come back home on Sunday. And grandmother practically raised the children because she had them all during the weekend and all the chores he was supposed to do. And also my mother's brother, Dr. Zach Causey, graduated from the University of Alabama Medical School. And he was one of the first doctors in Washington County. And he had his office in Healing Springs because that's where my mother lived. And my father had come from, his folks had come from Tennessee here. And so he had to leave here in the early years of his practice because of his allergies. He went to Arizona. But the funny thing, he sent his children back to the University of Alabama to finish their doctorates, and all three of his sons were doctors. Now, my paternal grandfather was the founder of the Little Williams community just outside of Vinegar Bend, Alabama. And he gave the land and founded the Little Bethlehem Baptist Church, where I went to church when I was little. And he was a deacon, and my father and his brothers were deacons. Vinegar Bend, we haven't had much about the south side of the county, but that was my home, you know. And Vinegar Bend was named because they had the big depot there. And the M&O Mobile and Ohio Railroad came through there. And it turned over there on the curve as you were coming into Vinegar Bend from Escatawpa. And they named it Vinegar Bend when they founded the town. And this was a thriving little city. And it had the first drugstore in Washington County. Had the first paved sidewalks in Washington County. And that was Mr. Ebb Turner owned the old country down there. The Stahl was on it now, but the Abbotts owned it after Mr. Ebb Turner. And so we had everything in Vinegar Bend at that time. He had a sawmill, turpentine stills, all kind of logging and all kind of mills, and a big commissary. And the depot, of course, we traveled on train a lot then because we'd come to the depot in the buggy and get on the train. I know I got on the train to go to college, business college in Mobile. And so I guess that Vinegar Bend had the only real mansion that we've ever had in Washington County. And I just wish all of you could have seen it. It was so beautiful. It's 3 stories. And of course, it was owned by Mr. Eb Turner. And as a little girl, my father was head woodsman for the Eb Turner Lumber Company and all of the land. And I can remember walking up those steps and into that big home. And it was just beautiful. It had 3 stories, and the staircase, I could still see the staircases going up. And it had a big ballroom, I remember that. And it was just beautiful. But I lived to see it just crumble down to nothing. Like the Chaton house up here, it just finally did. And I was a frequent visitor there because Papa would go and leave me over there with Miss Turner, and I just enjoyed staying with her. She bought books for me. I love to read, and she bought books for me and saved me all the papers and funny books and funny papers from New York City. And our home was out in the country about 2 miles from there, from Vinegar Bend. And our lives, of course, were centered, all of our lives were centered, as Vivian knows, around our church and school, wasn't it? And of course, we all went to Fruitdale School. But I always remember the first Model T Ford that my father had. And when he brought it home, we were so thrilled. It was the only Model T in the whole country. We thought there never would be another one. And I was so interested in it until I learned to drive that thing when I was 10 years old. And then when I was 12, I was running a little taxi from Deer Park to Chatham. I brought people up here to pay the taxes and go to the bank. And I was only 12 years old then. We didn't have to have a license in those days. All right? And of course, everything that we had was centered around the church and the school. And my parents believed in education. And my father was a trustee at Fruitdale School. Vivian, many years, you remember that, Gary Williams. And he was on the Board of Education for a long number of years. I can't remember how long. And of course, I love sports. And I was a sort of a tomboy. And I played on the varsity basketball team at Fruitdale High School when I was in the 7th grade. That's where I began playing basketball. And of course, we played on outside courts. And I'll never forget what I wore was those big black bloomers. You know, the first suit we ever had were the black bloomers that you wore down over your knees and the top to match it. I can still see Mama making those bloomers and everything for me to wear. But I'll tell you, we played when it was cold, and we played but we didn't play in the rain for sure. But during my school years, we were in the Great Depression. And I can remember as a little girl thinking I just knew that I was going to starve to death. And all of us were really in a hard situation at that time. But living in the country, of course, we had plenty to eat because we had farm products, and we had the livestock and chickens and everything like that. And I remember all the people of our folks from Memphis and Mississippi and all in there who lived in the cities coming to our house so they could eat. You know, we had plenty to eat, but we surely didn't have any money. You remember that, Doc? And so Fruitdale High School closed in 1932, and that just broke our hearts, of course. And then I moved on at the middle of the year when it closed. I came on to Chatham and graduated in 1933 with Lewis and that class. And it was, I lived in that dormitory. And we had of course now, nobody lived there much then. The teachers were all out, everybody was gone then. But Brother Mac Jones and his children lived downstairs. And I got to come over here and finish school because Brother Jones and Lou were going to look after me and see that everything went on all right with me. And so I'll never forget Brother Jones. And that's when he first came to Chatham. It was 1932. in that time, is that right, Lucius, or who's this? I believe it was
I
32.
don't remember.
It was 32 because he had come from Citronelle to the dormitory. And so they lived downstairs, and he had an old cow that he was milking for those children. And I can still see him running that cow all over that back of that a schoolyard, trying to get the cow. I told him one day, Brother Jones, you're never gonna conquer that cow. He said, no, and I'm not gonna milk it. Try to milk it anymore. So, and anyway, those were great years. And of course, when I came over here, I started playing basketball at WCHS with the varsity team. And after Robert Reed was our coach, that was Vivian, who Lucius' sister, who graduated with me. And after graduation in 1933, you wanted me to bring this in. I'm not going to brag on myself now, but these things happened, and it's what he asked me to do. And the oil companies in America, in the United States of America, formed independent basketball teams sponsored by the oil companies of America. And so we were chosen to play on that team, and we were sponsored by the Pure Oil Company. And Mr. L.Q. Gunner sponsored us, and Mr. Joe Pelham, and it was quite, we were called the Woco Peppers. And we went 4 years. Now, Vivian played with them after I quit, but 4 years we were unbeaten, and we had some national attention in 1933. I mean, no, it was in 35 that I was named All-American on the first team as a forward. And that was a real thrill to me. And it's been a thrill to my children. It's been so long ago I've almost forgotten. But we won many, many tournaments, and we have lots of gold medals and everything from those days. And I was voted in by several national polls, including the Associated Press, and I'm real proud of that. I was married to Marvin Reed in 1935 and became a permanent resident of Chatham. And I started working at Chatham State Bank after business college. And of course, Mr. Jim, now Vivian, that was before you, honey. Mr. Jim, if all of you know Mr. Jim Grenade, I worked for him 7 years before Vivian did. And so he was quite a character, but we loved him. And I remember they were talking about the telephone exchange down there at Miss Emma Purvis ran. He'd go to the window and lift the window up and say, Emma, you answer that phone. She wouldn't answer the telephone. And so he'd raise the window up and holler out at her to go to answer it. And he was president of the bank. All the banks were still closing all around us. Everything was, the banks were closing because of the Depression, and we were trying to come out of it. But Chatham State Bank never closed the doors. And I worked there until my son Jerry was born in 1941, and then my daughter was born in 1945. And during this time now, I'm coming on up a little bit.
What are their names?
Huh?
So what their names were?
Oh, Sandra, and she's Sandra Stewart now, and Jerry Reed. And during this time, Marvin Reed and Willard, his brother, formed a grocery store. Founded a grocery store right across the street where we've all been talking about, that little 2-story building. And then they went from there and built the big supermarket over there that still stands there now. And we had a drugstore on the side of it, and Sam C. was our first pharmacist there. And also we opened a store in Calvert, Alabama, a supermarket. And during this time, we built 3 homes in Chatham. We built the one that Gene and G.H. Gavin lived in. That was the first home we built. And then we built the big home where we raised our family, and Joe Hearn lives now. And then we built the little 2-story house that I live in, the 2-story brick house that I live in now. And I worked for Reed Grocery and was co-owner of the Laureley shop for many years. And of course, Marvin died real young with cancer, and in his late 40s. And during all my years in Chatham, I belonged to the Chatham Baptist Church. And that has been where I have centered my life, in the school, of course, and in the church. And it was a little tiny building that, as Lucius said a while ago, and now look what a beautiful building we have. And I have taught Sunday school, training union, and WMU, been in WMU for well over 50 years. And I was very active in the Washington County Baptist Association, and I had, at one time, I was training union director for the whole county with in charge of 32 churches, and I did that for 16 years. And I'm so glad to see my church grow from the little building that it was to the beautiful structure it is now. And one of my greatest honors, I reckon, that I don't mean to talk about my honors, but that's what you told me to do. So,
We want that.
was when I had my autograph tea and published and had my first book published, and which was a book of poems, and that was in 1975. And the name of the book is I Touch the Earth with My Heart. We have copies of it in our church library and in the library here in Chatham. And I thought it was so wonderful to have so many people come to my autograph tea and give me a little bit of joy, which I already had. I still write. I write for the Washington County News, and I do a creative corner occasionally, and I still love to write poetry. And now Jerry was in college, and Sandra was in high school when Marvin died. And I was determined that I'd put my two children through college. And I'm very glad to say that the Lord allowed me to do it, and that I give all the honor to Him for anything in my life that might be accomplished. And I want to just close with one little tiny poem that has been a real success, and I've had more copies of it. It is in free verse, Earthly Pieces. One day as pride was pushing to be uppermost in my life, it slipped between my fingers and crashed around my feet. Broken and trembling, I waited for God to cry and shout, I told you so. But no, He only stooped to where I fell and picked up the broken part, saying, don't cry, my child. These are only earthly pieces, that's all. Thank you.
Don't forget to tell about that new grandchild.
Oh, I do have a new grandbaby. I have a little 11-month-old grandbaby that my son was 51 when he was born, and I was 77.
What's the baby's name?
The baby's name is Ross Franklin Reed, after his grandfather Reed.
Bernice Shell. I was a Henson before marriage. I was born in 1909 at Hawthorne, Alabama. That's about 20 miles from here, I guess. I went to school at a little one-room schoolhouse at Hawthorne. Had one teacher, and we had 6th grade, I believe. But some way or other, we got a teacher to teach 2 years of high school. So I got that before I came to Chatham. And then I went 2 years here and finished in 1926. And I believe it was the day we graduated. No, it was just before we graduated. It was April the 1st. The high school burned. Not the high school, the Fred Jordan School burned. The little wooden school that was there by it that Lewis was telling about, it burned, and it caused the new building to burn. Well, let me tell you one little funny thing that happened back when my husband was going to school in that little wooden school. They had a funeral out there with this tree that Lewis was talking about. They buried aunt. All the children had to write the word aunt on a piece of paper. They put it in a little box, and they had a little funeral. They buried it there. They couldn't say aunt anymore in school. I always thought that was right cute. Anyway, I moved in the house when I came to Chatham that I'm living in now, and I was 14 years old then. I've been living there ever since. It kind of seems like home. And I married in 1929. I have 3 sons, Fritz Eugene Jr. and John Clarence II, and Sidney Henson Shell. I have 6 grandchildren. I have 4 great-grandchildren. And
And all your sons graduated from college.
all my sons were lucky to get to go to college because times were hard back then. And when I moved to Chatham, well, for a while after I moved here, there was no bridges out of Chatham. After a rain, you couldn't go any direction out of Chatham till the water went down. It didn't take long for it to go down. There's no paved roads, no electricity. It was really, really rough going. But anyway, I worked at the courthouse for 24 years. My husband was elected for 4 6-year terms as tax assessor. But he liked about nearly 4 years finishing out his last term. And I was appointed to fill out his unexpired term. I enjoyed my years at the courthouse. I met a lot of people, and it was a great experience for me.
What years was he tax collector?
He died in 70.
What year was he elected tax assessor the first time?
I think it was 46, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was. And so, if there's anything else y'all can think to ask me, I can't think much. Anyway, I think
Did you live in the dormitory that was up here when you
No,
went to school?
no.
How'd you come school bus?
no, my daddy built that house that I'm living in
Okay.
because there was 5 of us still in school. And my brothers, some of them stayed there a while, but he wouldn't let me stay in the dormitory. So he built us a place to
Because
stay.
of the bricks that went
Yeah.
around it?
He's a dealer here.
My father was Luther Talman Henson.
He was the first, he was a representative too.
He was representative for 2 terms, and he was commissioner, road commissioner, and he was a school board member. And my mother was Annabelle Kirkland.
And your father was the first Ford dealer?
No, there was a little Ford dealership, I believe Mr. McClure owned it, is that right? Mr. McClure. And then my daddy and my sister's husband bought that and built the Henson Motor Company that was over here where the bank is in front of the courthouse. And for years.
I remember.
Where the fire was.
Clearly.
And my husband worked there. He was the bookkeeper at Henson Motor Company until he went to the courthouse.
My father already passed away.
Your brothers and sisters?
Sister-in-law.
Who they were?
I had 5 brothers: Louis, Davis, Curtis, Robert, Sam, and 1 sister, Virgie. And,
Tell them how they married the Deeses and all married into the Hensons. You think you can tell all that?
confusing. Well, my sister and I married 2 brothers, Shells, and then Davis Henson, my brother, married Dorothy Shell, their sister. So that cheated our children out of a lot of kinfolk. But it's a pretty good way to do. We all feel very, very close.
Yeah.
And we've been lucky. We've had some happy times together.
Well, then their first cousin married your brother Louis,
Louis married Lucy.
Lucy Henson was there.
She was related to them.
She was the cousin of Jackie
Yeah.
Virgie, first cousin of theirs, and then her brother married into that family.
Oh.
Robert married
Mary Blunt.
Blunt. I couldn't think of Sam married a girl that went to school with my daughter Mary Lou.
We all, another little thing I may mention is, we keep in touch with each other. I think that's good. We all get together at our old church, old Washington church. They have a brick building down there, but this is the little wooden building back in the woods. Once a year, we have what's called homecoming. Then, every Thanksgiving, we meet at the old house that I was born in. And then 4th of July, we meet down in the woods.
My name is Lucius Bell. I was originally from Edison, Georgia, born and raised in Calhoun County, Georgia. And I moved to Chatham in 1940, 48. Married to Bernice Hirsch. It lived in Chatham, and I first met her in 1937 at college. And we got going together, and we got married in 1941. I worked for Steinlow and Dry Goods Company in Montgomery for 5 years. And after the war, I worked with Cool Van Awning Company for 3 years after the war, and Sis and I built us a house in Montgomery. And things got so tight, so they begged us to move to Alabama, to Chatham. So in February of 1938, we decided we'd move. We'd come to Chatham. And we lived over here in Miss Carrie Pruitt's house.
Was that in 1948?
1940. 48. And the town was being incorporated, in the process of being incorporated. And Mr. G.W. Hirsch, Sis's daddy, was the first mayor. And after they got it incorporated, they asked me to be the Marshal of Chatham. And from that until 1952, I was a marshal, and during that time, during 51 and 52, they put in a waterworks system. And they needed a superintendent of the water board, so I was it too. And my salary was $125 a month. I furnished my own car and own gasoline, because the town was so full, they couldn't hire nobody. And I often think about how much towns around us, or bigger towns, have grown and stretched out in 45 years. And I think about when we started, the city limits are just outside of Chatham, below the hospital. And now it takes in Route 10 mostly, 3 miles all the way around. And it's amazing that how fast a little town has grown. It don't look it now. The population is not as big as some places, but Chatham has grown in 45 years. That's it.
Did you have any deputies or any help with your police?
No, sir. That's another thing. And I often think about the nights I've got up a night after waterworks was in and go correct a complaint over town. And we started out with 121 customers in city limits. And I had to do all the meter reading, and all the paperwork. And I never forget, Jack Stewart was our auditor at that time. And he helped me more in my paperwork than anybody out in the world. I reckon could have helped. And in 1952, International Paper Company bought a wood yard here, and they needed a fellow to run it. And I went to work for them in March of 1952, and I give up the city marshal and the waterworks board. And during that time, Mr. Hurst was mayor, and we had 5 councilmen. I think I can name them all. She's got it written down there. Living Odom, Louis First,
John Stroud.
John Stroud, and
J.R. Lindy, and Ralph Massey.
Ralph Massey.
Anyone have any questions?
Oh, I asked Lucius before we came if he had a gun. I knew he didn't have any uniform or anything like that, and I asked him, and he said that he had a gun that he used, it was his own, that his uncle had given him. Is that right?
Yeah.
And he left it in the car one time and it was stolen.
Going up at Mildred's Cafe.
What did you do with people when you arrested them?
When I arrested them, I never arrested nobody.
I think if people get a job, that
I want to make one correction. When he first started to work, they were paying $75 a month salary because the town was just incorporated and didn't have any money. And after he retired, the very day he retired, they appointed Z.T. Hill marshal, and they raised his salary to $125 plus $25 car expense.
Who was the first judge? City judge?
Dennis Porter.
Dennis Porter was the
He was a lawyer.
attorney the whole time.
But if you didn't make any arrest, I guess you needed a judge that much, didn't you?
I didn't have a one complaint. Had a family in town here, right, they lived, well, the lady still lives there. And he called me around there, a fellow was drinking. Said, Lucius, come around here, Henry, I can't do anything with him. So, I got up out of bed and went. I told sis I'd be back in a minute. Chipped a little bitty thing. I didn't even come on downtown there. Picket fence around this place. And I stopped at the gate and I called Henry. Is that you, Mr. Lucius? I said, yeah. Come on in here. And his wife made us coffee and made him sit down there and drink a cup of coffee on the step. And that's the only complaint I ever had in that year's time.
That's pretty good.
I'm Bernice Bell. My parents were Grady Hurst and Minnie Pippin Hurst, and I'm one of 5 siblings in the family. I've lived all my life in Chatham until I went to college in Montgomery, and there I met Lucius, and after I graduated, we married in the summer of 1940, which contradicts his saying 41. But we moved to Montgomery where he was working, and we stayed there until the World War II started. And he went to sheet metal school in Nashville, Tennessee, and then went to work for civil service over in Savannah, Georgia. And we stayed there 5 years. And Chippy was born in 1943 over in Savannah, Georgia. And after the end of the war, we moved back to Montgomery, where we had built a house that had only lived in it 6 months before we went to Savannah. We lived there about 3 years, I guess. Penny was born in 1947 in Montgomery, and it was shortly after then that we moved back to Chatham in 49, I believe. And we've lived here ever since. And I worked 25 35 years for the state as a social worker with the Department of Human Resources. It was not called that then. But I did want to tell a little bit about the incorporating of the town, which was in 1949, and Mr. H.P. Allen, who was a Yankee from Illinois, was living then at the Hoffman Hotel and working in town, and he was the one that really started trying to do something for the town. Dennis Porter lived at the Hoffman Hotel, and he asked Dennis to look into what it would take to incorporate the town. And Dennis did and got all the papers together and everything, and the request for incorporation was made in February 8, 1949, was when they held the first election. And they only had 120 people in town then to vote in favor of the incorporation and 5 against it. And the birth date of Chatham is February 8, 1949. And then on February 14, 1949, the probate judge rendered a decree following the election and declaring Chatham to be an incorporated municipality, and ordered that an election be held March the 22nd, 1949, to elect a mayor and council members. And they were going to have a mayor. The type officials of the city was a mayor and 5 councilmen. And before they could do that, they had to take a census of the town, and I think there were 512 inhabitants within the incorporated limits of the town at that time. And the mayor's race for this office, and none of the races for the councilman had any opponents. So those elected were Grady-Hurst Sr., Mayor, Councilman was Lucius, John Stroud, J.R. Dickey Sr., Ralph Massey, Louis Ferguson, and Libin Odom. And the first council meeting was held April 18, 1949, and Sadie Mack Ferguson Little was appointed clerk and I believe treasurer. And she was paid $35 a month because the town did not have any revenue coming in or any money on hand. And Dennis Porter was appointed city attorney. And of course, and the mayor and the councilman worked without any pay. And of course, there were many needs of the town, and they finally decided that what was needed most was the water system. And they made a survey to see whether or not people that would subscribe to the town water system, whether or not that would pay for the bonds that they would have to sell to get the water system going. And of course it wouldn't. So they have somebody to come down from Donald Mills, I believe from Selma, was an engineer. He came down and made a study of the town, and they wanted to, then they had to form a water board, and those on the water board was Mr. Lon Gunner, Howard Moss, and A.T. Richardson. And they tried to sell the bonds after they got the bonds ready, and nobody would buy them. So finally, Mr. Ellis Jordan came by and said that he would buy $25,000 worth. Well, it was going to take $85,000 to put the water system in. And they kept trying to sell the bonds and couldn't. So finally, Mr. Ellis came back and said that he would buy the whole $85,000 worth. So if it had not been for Mr. Ellis Jordan and his generosity, we would not have a water system in Chatham. So on March the 20th, 1950, was when Lucius was appointed marshal, and then they started doing other things about town, getting lights and that sort of thing. So we've lived in Chatham ever since that time, and Lucius retired He and I retired in 1975 from our jobs, and our daughter and son both live in Chatham now, and we're very pleased. We have 2 step-grandchildren and 3 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. We're very proud of our family.
Give us your son and daughter's name again.
Penny Bell and Chippy Bell. That's not their real name. Penny's real name is Annis Virginia, but she has always from birth gone by Penny, and Chippy is John Lucius Jr. And he has, since birth, has always gone by Chippy. And I've always gone as Sis Hurst. I've never been called by my real name.
Were your parents some of the original people here?
My father was from Chatom County. His family have a very long lifespan, and Daddy was 89, I believe, or 87 when he died, and mother's people were from Franklin, and she died in August of 92, and she was 93 years old at that time.
And Mr. Lucius, you're going into the shrine in a few days. Do you mind giving us your age?
82.
I'm age 77, and I would like to say that Mother received her 50-year pin from the Eastern Star, and that Daddy received his 50-year pin from the shrine. And we are members of Chatham Baptist Church, and I've been a member of that church since I was 13 years of age.
Sis, what was the purpose of your dad coming to Chatham to live?
After Daddy finished the 7th grade, I believe, at Mount Sterling, which had a very good academy then, he could teach up to the 7th grade in school. He had a certificate to show that but he went to Mobile and took a business course, and Daddy came to Chatham and was depot agent, worked for the AT&N Railroad, and after he had worked there about a year or 2 years, he went to work for, I believe there was 3 people that formed Chatham Mercantile Company, a Mr. Cohen, and I can't recall the other 2 men's name at this time. And it's back of the Alpha Insurance Company, the building was. And Daddy worked for them for about a year and a half, and then he bought them out. And he was sole owner of Chatham Mercantile Company until he retired. I guess it was about 79 or 80, 81, something like that, before he retired and closed the store. And a lot of younger people worked for him during the years, but the real clerk that he had was Roy Herring from Millbury. And Roy worked, I guess, for him at least 50, 60 years.
Did your dad have any other business interest other than the Mercantile Company?
He ran a turpentine still for a long time, and it was located back of Albert Odd's house, between that and where Chuck and Peggy Reynolds bought the Hearst house over there. And,
Across from the city park in Chatham.
Behind the city park. And also from Mr. Al Richardson down in Route 10 community, he bought around 600 acres of land back in the 1920s, I think, and had numerous people to live on that and farm it through the years. And we still own that land, and that is where Chippy has built his house down there now. Daddy employed many people as workers in the turpentine business through the years. And we have some mighty dear friends all over County.
This is March the 10th, 1996.